We're back with Lana Walsh, sleep and insomnia expert, and Alan Sabey, chef and nutrition coach.
Sure.
Right? Right?
Yeah, why
I
not?
read that on the little blurb of that
right.
of your Pillars of Health
Exactly.
event,
Yeah.
which now will be Essential Health.
Health Essentials.
Health
or Essential
Essentials.
Health, but it's Essential Health, yeah.
Health Essentials. That's where people will be able to find you.
Yeah, we do. Yep, sorry, we do events where we talk about the different essentials of health: sleep, nutrition, stress, exercise, the things that we absolutely have to have in our life that dictate our overall well-being.
What caught my attention in listening to your talk was this diabetes story and cholesterol. Well, 2 months ago, my younger brother lost the bottom part of his leg.
Type 2 diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
That's so sad, yeah.
Yeah, totally sad. It's been just really hard on everybody and on his family. So the year before, at Christmas time, he actually lost his toes on the other foot. And the infection got into this other leg. So they fixed that one by removing the toes, and then the leg has just been a fight. And it's affecting his heart.
Of course it is.
Too. And so tell us tell us what you know. It sounds
It's a really
interesting.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's sugar. Sugar kills us.
Oh my goodness, there we have it.
There you have it.
I call sugar poison.
Yeah,
Poison.
It is. And in my talk, I talked about, I list the withdrawal symptoms from sugar right next to the withdrawal symptoms from things like cocaine and heroin, and they're virtually identical.
Right.
They light up the same pathways in our brain, but in our body, they do such massive damage, and it's a really slow burn. So type 2 diabetes is the #1 cause of amputations. And that's because the sugar in our system, especially the little teeny vessels, the capillaries, rips them apart. It damages them. They don't get any circulation. They can't heal. It starts with numbness in your feet and pain in your feet, and then eventually they just die, and you got to start cutting off toes, and again, then they get infected, and it travels throughout your whole body.
Right, or you damage them. He damaged it in a work accident. By the end of the day, he didn't realize that it had crushed his toes and infected.
It's astounding for people to hear. But what do you mean you didn't know you damaged your toes? Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't feel them.
Yeah.
Feel them. Right.
I got to a point where I couldn't sit at my desk with socks on. I couldn't drive. With the pressure of the socks even was unbelievable. Yeah. It's a super sad, slow burn type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, and now I've heard they're saying that it isn't sugar that is the problem with diabetes.
Is that right?
That's the latest that I heard, and I thought, are you kidding?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So they say it's not sugar, and it is sugar. But they're saying, well, here's another cause. The cause is you can't get sugar into your cells from insulin resistance. Right. So it's because of the insulin resistance. But what causes insulin resistance is the presence of carbohydrates. So when I first got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I went for a medical, and I hadn't had one for a lot of years. Wasn't feeling good. This was 15 years ago the first time. And the doctor called me back up after the blood work came in, and he said, come in and see me, there's a problem. So I sat down, and he said, you have type 2 diabetes. I'm like, what's type 2 diabetes, right? And he says, it's high blood sugar. I'm like, well, why don't they call it high blood sugar then? Like, why does it have right? So what causes high blood sugar? And he said, well, it's a complicated thing. I said, is it sugar? It took me 30 seconds to go like, wow, if there's no sugar, can there be high blood sugar? So it's insulin and sugar kind of work like caffeine or red wine, if you will. You know, like at first, 1 glass of red wine, a little tipsy, 1 cup of coffee, you're ready to go. You have to drink more and more and more of it to get the desired effects, right? And that's the same with sugar. In order for us to have those energy pathways remain efficient, we need more and more insulin to get the sugar into our cells. And there's a lot of causes to this. Fat's certainly one of the causes. So as long as insulin is high, we need more and more and more and more of it to get the blood sugars into us, and then sugar stays in our system. If sugar stays in our system, it's doing damage, a lot of damage. So the key is not to have sugar. One of the keys.
And so you take on the role of myth buster. And so bust some of those myths for us.
Sure, yeah. Well, one is that that there is no cure for type 2 diabetes. That's if you go to the diabetes websites or you talk to doctors, they say that you cannot reverse type 2 diabetes. All you can do is get on medication and manage it to the best of your ability for the rest of your life.
Like thyroid.
Like thyroid, like cholesterol, like antidepressants. Most of the medication out there is not designed to heal us at all. It's designed to manage the symptoms. So we're treating the disease, not the patient with the disease. And that's a really huge issue. And so when it comes to high cholesterol, high blood sugar, type 2 diabetes, when you start these medications, because of the way they work, you have to take more and more and more and more of them. The one patient I worked with had 10 medications plus insulin that he was on. And I don't know what system in the world, what kind of system you would go to where somebody comes to you and you just keep giving them all, and then eventually somebody has to say, hey, wait a second, what do you eat? Right? I mean, what are you eating? So our food manufacturing and our and what we've been told as far as high carbohydrate diets, they're just not necessary.
No. So that's one myth. I imagine there are a whole whack of them.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, and that another one is that fats are unhealthy. One of the biggest ones I talk about all the time is that saturated fats are bad for us. And again, we like to be able to say the butler did it, right? We want to be able to say it's sugar, it's fat did it. And in 1970, when Ansel Keys convinced everybody that fat was what was causing cholesterol, that was an observational study. And observational studies, and it had been they don't work, right? An observational study back then, he handpicked a bunch of countries and said the healthiest countries don't have fat. Anyway, it's been debunked so many times, but you've never heard of it. So they adopted an official low-fat protocol because fat causes cholesterol, and fat absolutely does not cause cholesterol at all. Not at all, not at all. And they've tried to prove that it does ever since then. It's one of the most tested things possible, and it shows absolutely the reverse all the time. It's the combination. We don't have in nature, we don't have carbohydrates and fats together, right? There's not, a strawberry doesn't have fat, right? We have protein and fats together, and we have protein and carbohydrates together, right? Like nuts or wheat or something like that. But we don't necessarily have fats and carbohydrates together. So those two, our body can't metabolize them at the same time. So if we're burning sugar, we can't burn fat. And if we're burning fat, that's because sugar isn't present. Our body has to prioritize the metabolization of sugar. So for the longest time, everybody thought, well, if when we eat sugar, our body burns it right away, it must be preferred. But because it prioritizes it, it doesn't mean it's preferred. That's like me saying, I prioritize shoveling my walk when it snows because I prefer it. No, I don't. It's dangerous if I don't. So I prioritize it. And it's the same thing with sugar. So we've vilified fat all these years, but our body can store unlimited amounts of fat. If you'd have seen me at 250 pounds, you'd have been like, oh yeah, like that. But we can only store a couple thousand calories of sugar. Why is that? Why do we store fat? I say this all the time. It's to be used as energy, but we never get around to it. And if we can mobilize fat, it's a cleaner fuel. It's a much better fuel. There is healthy fats and unhealthy fats, and some fats aren't good, but the whole idea that butter is bad for us is ridiculous on its own.
Okay. So when you say that, are you referring to butter you buy in the store or grass-fed butter? Well, we know that manufacturers of food, you know, there's a lot of processed foods and ingredients used. So not to go into that too deeply, but you just said butter's not bad for you. But, you know, I'm kind of anti-dairy a little bit.
Sure.
Because of how it's processed.
Yeah, so nowadays it's not only what we feed the cow that's bad, and certainly grass-fed or organic butter is 100% better. I mean, I grew up on milking the cow and churning the butter. So to get saturated fat, there's 2 steps, right? You milk the cow, you churn the butter. It's really easy. But yeah, pasteurizing, homogenizing modern milk, and then they add sugar to it to make it taste better. So and homogenization just means that the cream won't separate, which is, I don't know, people don't want to see the cream separate. It's ridiculous. So is that butter as good as grass-fed butter? No, but it's not necessarily. It's certainly miles ahead of Base-L or margarine that's been processed 15 times and hydrogenated.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so do you have a third myth?
third myth. Well, there's mostly I talk about.
You talk about cholesterol.
Yeah, cholesterol
and that's
a lot
important.
too. Yeah, I think one of the other things I talk about before I get to cholesterol is people have this idea that if the government has approved something to be in a grocery store, it must be healthy for us. right? And it's like, well, the government said it was okay, so we can eat whatever's in a store. And really, being into food manufacturing a little bit myself, everything in a store is about shelf life, not health life.
Right.
It's a little not bad, right?
We have to put that on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about preservatives and manufacturing.
Right.
And food manufacturers actually hook up the same thing on their head as she was trying to think of to make sure that the food you're eating is lighting up your addiction centers. Right, so it's not a fair fight. That versus what I'm saying and what Lan is saying, it's a tough battle. And cholesterol is, getting back to cholesterol, this idea that your high LDL is going to kill you is ridiculous. It's not at all, right? Or that I explained in my speech, in my presentation, that statins have said that you help 35% of the people versus people not on statins. And I explained how that study only helps 1% of the population. So there's relative risk versus actual risk. And out of 135,000 people, only 1% of the people on placebo were worse off than the statin people over a course of 3 years. And as that time went on, that balanced right out. Because of the way statins work, they work by preventing your body making LDL cholesterol. But LDL isn't even cholesterol. Cholesterol is in LDL. But it prevents the making of cholesterol. So then your body doesn't have cholesterol. But your body needs cholesterol.
Right.
The bad cholesterol, so-called LDL, only becomes bad if it becomes damaged. And the number one cause of damaged or oxidized LDL that gets clogged in your arteries is, would you care to guess? Call
sugar.
it out if you know it's sugar. There you go. It's sugar. It's oxidization caused by sugar, and then that becomes what's called a foam cell, and that's what does the damage in our arteries. And so what they said was, okay, well, LDL is what's being damaged, so let's just remove LDL. That's like saying there's kids on Whoop Up Drive throwing rocks at cars, and we have damaged cars, so let's just get less cars off the road.
Right.
Let's get rid of the kids, right? Well, let's not throw rocks at cars anymore. Right. So we're not talking, as most medicine doesn't, talk about what the root problems are at all with diabetes or with cholesterol or with food. Right.
Wow. Some great information. I'm sure you have a lot more.
Yeah.
So tell us where we can reach you, and we'll put some links on where you can reach both Alan and Lana, and they can probably fill you in with a whole lot more information than just here. So go ahead and talk into the camera.
That one. There it is right there. Okay, good. I have my commercial kitchen inside the Purple Carrot. There's meals available there every day in the cooler, or you can order meals directly from me. HighQFoods.com, and that's high as in elevate, not high Q Foods. It's not below foods, it's high, H-I-G-H, QFoods.com. And of course I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and love to hear from you.
All right, and before we go, though, I want to hear, you turned around the diabetes?
Oh, yeah. I completely reversed my type 2 diabetes.
How long did that take?
3 months.
No.
Yeah, so I had it, so I'm a guy, got type 2 diabetes, and I come from a kickboxing background where we cut weight all the time, and I was cutting weight with guys, and we'd cut weight, and I'd cut weight for competitions and tournaments, and then I'd put on back weight. When I stopped doing that, I just ballooned up, and I was type 2 diabetic, and I went 9 years without doing anything about it, because I realized if I just lost a little bit of weight, my numbers came down a bit, so I just thought I was being lazy, and that I just need to comply with the old school of thinking, eat 5 times a day, eat less, do more. I could talk to you about an hour why that's wrong. And so I found out I was diabetic. 9 years later, I actually started losing the feeling in my feet. I had massive macular degeneration. It was, and I kind of, Alzheimer's is called type 3 diabetes because insulin resistance happens in our energy pathways in our brain as well. But I came to in London drugs, and it took me about 10 seconds to just kind of realize where I was. I didn't recognize why I was holding a vitamin bottle, and I didn't recognize where I was or remember how I got there or anything. I put it down and went to the doctor, and he said, you got to get on medication. Right now, high cholesterol through the roof, triglycerides through the roof, A1C of over 12, fasting blood sugar of over 12, A1C over 10, he said, get on medication right now or you're going to have a heart attack or it's bad. And I was like, well, I didn't want to take meds. So I was like, but no, I'm an idiot and I haven't done anything. So give me 3 months. I came back 3 months later and had completely reversed type 2 diabetes. After every piece of literature says you can't do it, right? And then I just started diving into the studies on the basis of the premises. If there's no sugar, there can't be high blood sugar.
Right.
And my numbers in
Good
3
for
months were
you.
completely normalized. And I've been shouting from the rooftops ever since that people can do this and helping
other
as many
people.
people as I can.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good
reverse
for
this
you.
for themselves and educate them.
Good for you. All right, Lana, tell us where we can find you. Well, you're a couple, I found out. So if you can't find her, just go to Purple Carrot.
Yeah, sure. I'm lanawelshcoaching.ca. You can find me on all the social channels at that address. And I'd love to chat with you. I do everything online, so yeah, just reach on out.
And it seems like there's a lot more to learn, so we'll probably have them back. Thanks again.
Love to. Very nice.
you.
Happy to be here.